to the Cal Fire Show. I'm Dr. Kelly Barron, and I am so excited today to have Terry Tateossian. See, I didn't mess up your last name, but I was going to go mess up your first name. Terry is a certified nutritionist. She's a hormone specialist, a personal trainer, and a wellness coach for women over 40. So pretty much your go-to at this stage in your life. And I'm very excited to have you on, Terry, and get to hear from you and get your thoughts about training, nutrition, hormonal shifts, and all things in between. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I thought we'd sort of kick off the conversation by talking about muscle building. I am a big proponent of that. I think it's incredibly important for women in the perimenopause, menopause age group and postmenopause for a variety of reasons. And I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are the key benefits?
Yes, so the key benefits to retaining muscle, because we begin losing muscle at about the age of 30 at the rate of about 1% per year. And what ends up happening over time is that being under-muscled contributes to a lot of issues down the road, such as diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and other metabolic diseases and conditions, as well as cancer. And there's a really great book by Peter Attia called Outlive that discusses a lot of these medical reasons why we need to make sure that we're retaining lean muscle tissue and keeping our body fat low. Now, as midlife women, when we have sufficient muscle on our skeletal frame, it allows us to eat a little bit more food. It gets our metabolism a little bit more revved up. It helps us with osteoporosis and other related issues. It even helps with arthritis over time. It helps us regulate hormones better. It helps us be less insulin resistant. And so the benefits are so many that it's almost a no-brainer that we need to retain the muscle that we have initially, and then we need to work on not losing additional muscle as we age.
It doesn't it, I don't know about you, I'm 54, and I just never until I started getting into midlife did I ever, think about the fact that muscle building, resistance training had so many health benefits and was so important as we age. Our mothers, our grandmothers don't tell us that at all. And in fact, I don't even think they picked up a weight or body weight exercises or even a resistance band. So when you talk about building muscle and females and all these benefits, is there any change in how we should approach resistance training in, say, from our 20s to our 30s to our 40s to our 50s?
From my experience and from all the anecdotal case studies that I have working not just on my own body, but also working with over 300 women, there is no difference between how you should train between 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. It doesn't matter. We build muscle at the same rate. Now, the difference is being smarter as we get older in terms of reducing risk, right? But the exercises are the same. We build muscle at the same rate. That whole myth about, you can't build muscle after 40 has been busted over and over again. It's just not, it's not the case. And so the same way that a 20-year-old, or in my case, my youngest client is actually 13, my son, and all the way to 70, it's about the same. Now, the difference between when you're 20 and when you're 70 is your recovery rate, right? So our sleep gets disrupted as our hormones start to fluctuate, as we have less estrogen in our body. And so our recovery is not the same. So potentially we may not be able to withstand a more, extreme workout that we could have at 20 when we're 70, but the benefits are still the same, and the rate of lean muscle development is pretty much the same. Very small, tiny percentage of change.
I think there's a lot of confusion still out there on what is, when we say resistance training versus saying strength training. And even in that realm of that phrase, what can you kind of go through a little bit with us about the different types of resistance training? Like, what does that really mean? I think a lot of people just assume we have to throw around a barbell, but if you could kind of, lay out the different versions that there are.
Yes, I get this question all the time. Okay, so I'm gonna put my preach hat on.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm gonna get really real with all the ladies. Okay, this is what I hear constantly. I hear this over and over again. I walk a lot and I do Pilates. I swim and I do yoga. Isn't that enough? That's resistance training, isn't it? Wrong. That is great. Keep doing that, right? Don't stop doing yoga, Pilates, walking, swimming, biking. Those are all fantastic modalities, but they are not resistance training, specifically utilizing progressive overload. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to deadlift 300 pounds off the floor on day one? Absolutely not. You never actually have to even get to triple digits. You could still get enormous amount of benefits doing 20-pound dumbbells and an RDL, or a 65-pound deadlift, or a 45-pound bench press. And the other thing is, you don't even have to do anything with barbells. Okay, you can get great results just using dumbbells, resistance bands. You could do it at home. You can go to the gym and use the pin machines. As I've gotten older and I'm almost 49, I love pin machines because and Smith machines and leg presses and things like that, because they offer stability, right? They offer better balance while you're doing a squat, for example, using a Smith machine. And so that doesn't mean they'll ignore your stability and your flexibility. That's why we have yoga and Pilates. But in general, I think there's a really big misconception in terms of what is resistance training and what is progressive overload. And a lot of people assume that progressive overload means you need to add weight constantly week to week to week. And that is also another misconception. And I think it scares a lot of women and intimidates them from picking up a weight or going into a pin machine or gym machines. And so I'm going to explain what progressive overload is, right? There are many ways to progress. For example, let's say in a leg press, right? So you can increase the weight. That's one way. Some weeks you might be able to do that. Some weeks you might not be able to do that. And that's okay. You can reduce the tempo in the leg press. So on the way down, you can go a little bit slower. Let's say a 3-count tempo. You can add partial reps, right? So you can do 1 full rep, 1 half rep, and that counts as 1 rep. You can increase or decrease the amount of rest in between sets. You can do extra reps in a set with the same amount of weight that you did last week, or you can increase the set. So there's so many ways to look at progressive overload that goes beyond how much weight you're actually pushing or lifting. And so I really want to make that very clear to everybody who feels intimidated that, oh, they have to keep adding more weight. You don't really need to do that. There's a lot of ways to manipulate your training.
I think that there's a lot of women too that they really kind of want that magic formula of how many days should I work out, how long should that workout be, how many exercises should be in that workout, and I personally would say that that's very individualistic, but if you could give just a basic to someone who's a beginner, sort of beginners, has familiarity with weight training or resistance training, what would you say to that question of how often should I work out and how long should my workouts be?
Great question, because again, it's very bio-individual, right? So it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on how much time are you willing to dedicate to, especially in the very beginning, to learning new equipment, to learning new movements, to practicing form and things like that. Generally, I personally like to give my clients a 5-day weightlifting per week workout splits, and they take normally about an hour. And so that's where I ideally like to see that, especially in the beginning. As things progress and as your weights get heavier and heavier, 3 to 4 times is great. Now, if you cannot do 5 times per week, 3 times per week is better than 0. So again, it depends on your lifestyle, right? So there's a lot of executives that potentially are traveling a lot. They get 3 times a week, and the workouts are very, very much tailored to their lifestyle and the time that they have available, to their travel schedule, family schedule, etc. And even 3 times a week gets fantastic results over time. The consistency is really what matters. So if you cannot do 5 times a week for the rest of your life, right? Because this is not a one-time thing, then find the frequency that you can do forever, right? Because it's forever.
And I wanted to get back to your travel clients, because I think this is, I hear this a lot from women, whether they're working and they're traveling or they're on vacation, and their hotel gym just doesn't have a lot of equipment, or they say, oh, well, I just won't have the time. But resistance bands and body weight exercises, see, I personally would say, if you have a small set of those, or you can do body weight exercises, do you do this with your clients? Do you kind of give them the travel workouts, if you will?
Absolutely. So at a minimum, your gym is going to have dumbbells. Like that's
Right.
the bare minimum. And you can get a great workout with just dumbbells and possibly a resistance band. So most of my clients actually pack the resistance band or 2 of various resistance with them, so that they can take advantage of that. A lot of times, some clients will pack a TRX as well and use that in the hotel. Now, I do have some hacks for travel workouts, right? So I have a ton of clients that do this. You can use let's say there's no gym, right? Let's say your travel is to the middle of the desert and you're in an RV and there's nothing around, right? And you're on vacation. What the heck are you gonna do? Well, that's so easy, right? You bring your resistance bands, so you got that covered. You can use water bottles instead of dumbbells. You can use big water jugs for goblet squats. You can bring a backpack, okay, empty it out and throw a bunch of rocks in there or whatever, water bottles or whatever. Strap on the backpack and you can do weighted squats that way. And there's a ton of different ways to create modifications in your training plan to accommodate for that. You can use coffee tables as step-ups. You can use chairs for assisted or inclined push-ups. You could do a million things. It's just a matter of making it a priority and not instantly deciding, I'm not going to have time, I'm not going to have a gym, this is not possible. Because I promise you, it is 100% possible, and you will feel better after having it done.
When we talk about, earlier you said, if you've got your training program, you're all in, you're dedicated, and you're super motivated, and then you get to the next week and you're thinking in your head, this is so exciting, and I'm going to bump up my weights by, I mean, I love 2.5 pound plates. I think those are your money makers mentally, because if all else fails, you could throw on 2.5s and you feel like you just, took the world on. But a lot of women, depending on where we are in our cycle or what our hormones are doing, because we are, talking to this age group where our hormones no longer want to play nice with us. But there are weeks, where you'll go in and you will feel weaker, or you'll feel tired. And what advice do you give to your clients who have that and say, last week I did 125-pound deadlift. This week I can't even pick it up off the floor and I'm so tired. What's wrong with me?
Nothing's wrong with you. So there's a lot of reasons why that may happen, and it's not necessarily always hormones. So I do not give training schedules and programs based around the menstrual cycle. I think that is doing women a disservice personally. And so what happens, what I'll ask when something like that happens is, what did your sleep look like in the last 2 days? What did your food look like, right? Because there's a very direct correlation between what you ate and your performance in the gym, right? So generally, the way that I advise my clients is to load up on starch before and after workouts, because that's when your body is most receptive to glycogen. And so, and that's what you need, right? You need that energy. So if you did not eat enough food the day before, or you didn't hit your nutrition plan the day before and the day of, it's very likely that you won't have the same amount of energy or strength. If you skipped out on your hydration, on electrolytes, things like sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc., that could also show itself in the gym. And so there's a lot of factors that play into that. It's not necessarily just hormones. I don't like to blame hormones instantly, because that's not always the case. 80% is the lifestyle or the habits that contribute to that. Now, if you're not feeling as strong, that's okay. That happens all the time, actually. That happens to people that have been doing this for over 10 years. There are some days where you're just not able to do what you did the week before. And that's okay. That's okay, because it's just a phase. And what ends up happening, and I've noticed this with myself and clients, is that that particular phase goes away at some point, and you come back and you can actually do way more than your last PR in the gym.
There are we know them, we're friends with them, or we're all related to women who think more is better. So going the opposite of that, who are in, they're taking group classes 5 times a week, sometimes twice a day. They're, in 5 different types of physical activity, thinking that they can outrun or outbeat, weight gain, increase their body composition by doing more. And what do you say to that with your clients?
I love this question. So I'm going to put my honest preach hat on again. I'm sorry, ladies. I know, but you cannot outrun or outtrain your mouth. You just can't. So you can eat 1,000 calories literally in 2 minutes, and you will have a very hard time burning that off for the day. So if your nutrition is not on point, meaning you're in maintenance or whatever your goal is, right? Everybody has a different goal. Like my goal in the last 2 years was to gain weight. So it really depends where you need to be as far as calories, nutrition, how much protein, how many carbs, how much fat. And your training needs to reflect that, right? So if you are using training and cardio for weight loss, I used to do that, and you're just spinning your wheels, because we don't do these things to lose weight. So you don't do cardio to lose weight. You don't walk to lose weight. You don't lift weights in order to lose weight. You do that for the benefit of your body composition. You watch your nutrition, and that's where fat loss comes in.
Well, I'm gonna be the unpopular one now. It's gonna be me, but I'm gonna defer the question over to you. But you talked about sleep can have a tremendous effect on your performance in the gym, your daily life, hydration, proper nutrition. All these things play a huge role in how you function the next day. It's like putting, I would say like the high test gasoline in your tank to drive your car. You want to put the best in to get the best out. Here comes the unpopular. And especially because this statistic is as we go through our 40s and 50s and above, alcohol consumption in females tends to rise. And I'm going to be really unpopular here and say, can you talk about how alcohol, while we all love our favorite beverage, how that affects your performance and your overall, how you get through the day?
Alcohol, my favorite toxin. So I've been alcohol free since 2019. I don't regret it. I feel great. But it's been the best decision I ever made. Now, what ends up happening is when we consume alcohol, and technically what we're consuming is ethanol. It's a carcinogen. And what the body does when you ingest a carcinogen or ethanol is it stops all systems. So if you're in a fat loss state, that gets put on hold. If whatever else is going on in your body, everything gets put on hold. And the body goes and tries to deal with this poison that was just, that has just entered its system, right? So everything gets put on hold. It goes to deal with that. Now, the other thing that most women don't realize, especially if they're very conscious of how many calories they're consuming, when you look at an alcohol label, it says zero everything, right? It says zero protein, zero carbs. Well, depends if it's a mixed drink or not, right? Zero fat. But then it's got a nice big sticker up at the top. It says 140 calories per 100 milligrams. And so where does that go? How do you account for that? Is it protein? Is it carbs? Is it fat? Right? So you have to make a decision when you're having 3-4 glasses of wine here and there, or any other type of beverage, is where are you going to attribute these calories to? And a lot of us don't actually realize that we're consuming a lot more sugar than we even account for in our day just by having 2 glasses of wine, for example. So the equivalent of a wine glass is about, I would say, 35 carbs. So if you have 2 glasses of wine, that's about 70 carbs that you're adding, if you attribute it to your carbs. And I have a slide on my Instagram about this, on how to calculate it. You're consuming an extra 70 grams of carbs per day that you could have used as food, right? And it does wreck a lot of systems in the body, especially as we're going through perimenopause and our body's already going through a lot of changes, a lot of fluctuations. We're putting all of those things on pause to go deal with the ethanol in the system. So, should you cut off alcohol completely? That is a personal decision. It just messes with your sleep, right? So a lot of people falsely assume that alcohol helps them get to sleep, but you don't actually get good quality sleep, right? So you don't actually get into a full REM, which is where all of the recovery and the repair happens. You're in a very superficial state of sleep, and you're over-consuming carbs, you're consuming toxin. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, okay?
No, I appreciate that, because often we don't think, just in the most simplistic terms, that, when you're about to have that glass of wine, we don't register like, well, but we could have that big sweet potato instead. There's food, in a sense. Like, you could have more food if you didn't have the drink. And we never think about that. We're thinking about, I need this to unwind, or like you said, I need this to go to sleep, help me sleep better, or to feel good, when really maybe that little bit of extra food could have done just as, probably a million times better for you than the effects that you would get from alcohol. So I definitely appreciate your stance on that and that knowledge that you brought us. So just like I asked you with resistance training, nutrition, does that need to change as we go through perimenopause and menopause, or is our nutrition just fundamentally stay the same?
You're asking me all the trigger questions. I love it.
That's my job.
All right, so I'm gonna tell everybody what I see out there. Okay, this is what I see. I'm gonna let the dog finish the barking.
This is the dog's favorite topic. The dog's excited too.
The dog loves when I get on a podcast, it loves to start barking. 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, somebody just walked into my house, so he started barking. All right, so I'm going to describe what I see out there, right? So a woman comes to me and she says, I need help with nutrition. First thing I do is I put my accounting auditor hat on and we dive into a full nutritional audit. And I ask that she records everything she normally and naturally eats throughout the day for at least 7 days so that I can get a good idea of what's actually going on. And this is the typical. So if this is you, please don't feel bad about it. I am just sharing this because I want people to know and become aware that this is the norm. This is what we have been conditioned and what our lifestyles have become for many years, right? And it takes a really long time to change this, but this is what I see. Very low amounts of protein, very high carbs, mostly coming from processed food and sugar, and extremely high fat consumption. And the other thing I notice is very irregular eating patterns. So I see things like one day we're consuming 800 calories and then the next day we're consuming 3,200 calories. One day we don't start eating until 3 p.m. because we're not hungry. We're not morning people. We don't like breakfast, right? I've heard that so many times. And then we eat all these 3,000 calories between 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So technically it's intermittent fasting, but it's uncontrolled and it's a binge. I would call that a binge. And I used to do that 10 years ago when I was 80 pounds overweight. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't lose weight. And so there's no consistency on a macro level, meaning we go on binge diets for weeks on end, and then we go on a very restrictive diet, right? And so on a macro level throughout the year, we do these yo-yo things, but we also do them on a micro level, where throughout the day, we're very inconsistent with the fuel we're providing the body. And then throughout the week as well, right? So one day super low, next day super high, one day super low, because it's like, oh gosh, I ate so much yesterday. I have to completely starve myself the next day to make up for it, right? And so the body gets very inconsistent messages. It doesn't trust that it will have enough fuel to perform its systematic functions, right? And so everything goes haywire. And this is just the result of years and years and years of this habit, of this lifestyle. And when perimenopause comes knocking on the door, and now the body needs to do all these extra things that are very normal, very natural. This is not a sickness. Being in perimenopause is not a sickness. It's not a disease, right? And so the body doesn't have the fuel or the nutrition or the material to take care of these new fluctuations that are entering our life. And so everything starts to break down, right? Things that were okay in the past no longer work. Things you did before to lose weight no longer work. Everything is going bonkers on you, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on? It's really an accumulation of things from the 10 years before.
How many clients, because I know it's more people than not that I speak to these days, in terms of, well, it's going to apply to both your fitness and nutrition and your mindset coaching. Those that are on semaglutide GLP-1, and they are using that as a tool to lose weight, but they are having so much difficulty because it suppresses your appetite getting in calories, and they don't want to end up with that, with their body composition doesn't necessarily equal, people don't understand when you lose weight, they think, oh, then you're going to have this like incredible curvy muscular body underneath, but that does not happen unless you are training along with that. How do you advise your clients who are using semaglutide as a tool in their nutrition and their fitness?
Again, very bio-individual. This is very, very specific to each person's lifestyle, right? And their health markers. So for example, I'm going to give you a case study. This is not a client. I will not share client details, but I'm going to give an example. Let's say you are a 50-year-old woman that has been dieting for the last 10 years. And you have done so many diets that your calories on a daily basis for maintenance are at about 1,200, right? So you're not eating enough food to begin with, right? We need roughly about 90 grams of protein just to sustain life. And what I normally see is about 60 to 70 grams of protein per day on average with women, what they're actually eating. So they're already at a deficit there. They're already in an extreme deficit calorically at 1,200 calories. And they can't lose weight because their metabolism has slowed down to accommodate for these 1,200 calories. So should you cut your calories at that point even more by using a GLP? Will that be in your benefit? My opinion is that you actually need to increase your calories in order to see a result. You might have to look at how much cardio are you doing. Why are you at 1,200 calories and you can't lose weight? That's my next question. Are you building muscle? Because muscle is going to help you eat more food and not gain weight. It's going to be more efficient in your body and how it consumes the energy you're putting in. How much protein are you eating, right? How many carbs? I would have to go in there and do, again, a full audit and see what the heck is going on and why do you need a GLP in order to lose weight if you're already at a very low caloric intake, right? That doesn't sound right to me. So something is off there. Now, on the flip side, if you are a woman who's 50 years old and you have you're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic or you have over 100 pounds that you need to lose, and there's a lot of other things going on. There's a history of emotional eating or eating disorders and all these things. Now that is a conversation to have with your doctor, right? Very important not to listen to a social media influencer, to random online something clinic that has no idea who you are, what your lifestyle is, your health history, all these things, is to talk about it with your doctor and decide if that's the right tool for you. But generally, when I see someone at 1,200 calories and they're not able to lose weight, a lot of it can be manipulated through lifestyle changes and upping their calories or upping their protein and adding resistance training, and things start to move. So, is GLP my first go-to? Most likely not.
All right, we're going to switch back to kind of picking your brain for your favorites or your top fives, if you will. We'll go back all the way back to exercise and resistance training. If you had to say a top five or a core group of exercises that you think, in whatever form, dumbbell, barbell, we'll say that they can be variations on all those forms, that you feel are really good and should always kind of be in your repertoire, if you will, of training.
Yes, so my favorites, the ones that build brute strength, right? Brute raw strength is what you want. We don't really care about big muscles or how bulky they are or how defined. That's not really the factor that contributes to longevity and health span. It's actually brute strength, right? So to me, if you can do 50-pound bicep curls, it doesn't mean anything because it doesn't contribute to preventing muscle decline, osteoporosis, etc. So the exercises that help with raw brute strength overall are compound moves, right? So you want to be squatting, and they're all functional, right? So these are all functional types of exercises that will help you in your day-to-day life, right? So sitting down, getting up. Do you have to squat 200 pounds? No. You can sit on a chair and you can get up and you can hold a water jug, and that's great, right? So we want to be doing that so that you can get up and down off of chairs. You want to be doing deadlifts, right? So what it is a deadlift, you're hinging at the hip, you're bending the knees, and you're picking something off the floor, right? So that is also a functional type of movement if done properly, right? So squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts are a great compound move for posterior chain, for glute strength. Now, the glutes are the biggest muscle in our body as far as women are concerned. And there's multiple very interesting studies out there that say that women that have a lot of leg muscle in their quads and glutes actually have outlived women that have not. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the last one is, bench press is a compound full body activation type of exercise. And I'm going to add one more, the Romanian deadlift. That is great for your hamstrings and your glutes. So those are really staples in a really good program. You want to be able to perform these either with a barbell, dumbbell, machine. There's lots of different variations. With a chair, you could do them in all kinds of ways. But yeah, those are my favorites.
I think that we might agree on that one for sure. And just a note, only because I've been going through it, and I think some people will hear this right now and they'll go, yeah, but I have low back pain, so I can't do any of that, or I have a knee. And there's just, that's why you reach out to a coach that can help you through, because there's so many variations you can do, and you can still do, just like you said, you could squat to a chair. There's just a million ways that you could work around an injury, so it shouldn't hinder you. All right, now I'm going to go to your top, however many, foods for women in general. If you're, that work really well, that you feel should be in their diet as staples. Obviously, they're not the end all be all, but ones that you think are top nutritional benefit foods.
Yes. So all the lean meats. All right, so 99% ground turkey, 99% ground chicken, chicken breast, 96% fat-free ground beef, all the white fishes, right, shrimp, seafood. Just watch the fat content. Salmon is a little bit on the high end. So just be mindful of how you're pairing some of the higher fat content foods and what you're adding in addition to your plate. When you select those, they're all game, right? So I love all of these, even the ones that have a bit more fat. I just balance out the plate by adding different ingredients to the side dishes. Sweet potato, it's a precursor to progesterone. Great thing to add. It is considered a starch. White rice, I prefer white rice over brown rice for the arsenic content in brown rice, and I eat white rice all the time. So That's the reason why. All the different vegetables, right? So there's no vegetable that's off limit. Love them all. Specifically cauliflower, broccoli, green beans, they support the thyroid. And of course, during midlife, lots of things can go on in that area. Eggs, okay? I eat 7 eggs a day. I know it sounds really crazy, but it's 5 egg whites, 2 full eggs. So I limit the fat content in my omelet by only putting in 2 yolks, right? So each yolk is about 4.5 grams of fat. I add the 2, that gives me 9 grams. The rest of it is pure protein. It's a full and complete protein in egg whites. So if you had to make one choice, that's it, right? 0% fat-free Greek yogurt, great base for making an amazing yogurt parfait, right? So you add a little bit of protein powder to that, you add some berries, so go for the high antioxidant berries like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, all the different berries. You add a little bit of granola on top of that, and you've got a delicious yogurt parfait. It could be a snack, it could be breakfast, it could be late night snack, whatever, right? Another one is overnight oats. I love overnight oats because they're so easy to prep. You can make 7 of them all at the same time. Use any kind of milk you like. I prefer almond milk. It has low carb and low fat because I want to get my fat from the nuts and from the flavor, right? And so a little bit of oats. It's a great pre-workout. A little bit of protein powder in there. I'm not a big fan of using a lot of protein powder and things, so I limit it to about 10 grams per each one of these meals. Granola, some walnuts, or any kind of nut is great, and you have a perfectly balanced meal right there. Add some berries, strawberries to overnight oats. Fantastic. So those are my usual go-tos.
Awesome. Now the last is, do you have any tips or tricks or suggestions for, as we talked about, sleep being one of the biggest tools because it helps regulate cortisol? Any tips for that on how to make sure, or I shouldn't say how to make sure, how to increase your quality of sleep?
Yes, that's a big one. I think that's actually the elephant in the room for most of us because yes, when the sleep is compromised, everything goes down the toilet, right? So as soon as you start noticing that you're either not able to get to sleep or you're okay getting to sleep, but then you wake up and then you can't go back to sleep, right? So there's a 2 and 3 a.m. wake ups that then you can't go back. And so some of the things that we work on in my coaching group is having a really good bedtime routine to calm the nervous system down, right? So a lot of times during perimenopause, we have a lot of anxiety, right? So the hormones are fluctuating. We don't know what's going on. These are new things. We don't feel like ourselves. There's a lot of anxiety. We're also going through a lot of midlife things like, aging parents, teenagers, more stress at work, more responsibility. It's normal, right? Anxiety in this stage is very normal, and it's to be expected, really, considering everything that's going on. Your hormones are all over the place. Who the heck can sleep when all that is happening, right? I mean, I can't go to sleep until my teenager drives back home and I know she's back, right? 'Cause they're driving now.
I think we all have done or are doing that.
Yes. And so some of the things that do help is, if possible, start to wind down, right? So restorative yoga, we do this at all of my retreats, and I get a lot of great feedback on that it helps women wind down the nervous system. Another thing is possibly stop drinking water. If you do drink a lot of water, about 2 hours before, so you don't have to wake up and go to the bathroom. That's the number one reason most of us are waking up anyway, because we need to go to the bathroom. We have too much fluids in. Another thing that I recommend, and I am not sponsored, this is not an affiliate, I don't have a code. I don't have any of these things. It's a hot chocolate powder that has adaptogens in it, like all kinds of different mushrooms, and it also has CBD. It has helped me, and it has helped a lot of my clients. It's called Beam, so BEAM, Dream. They have all kinds of different variations of it. Some have hemp CBD, some don't. And so it's really a choice of what you prefer. And then there's another option also. I don't have a code. It's called Nuvita, and that is CBN. So it's a part of the spectrum of the cannabis plant. It's mostly CBN, CBD to help with sleep. Now, a lot of times what I'll recommend to clients is alternate between the two. So don't get attached to one and then do that for a long time, because eventually it's going to stop working, right? Your body's going to get used to it. So have like a few things that you can rotate around, so you don't get you don't adapt to any one of them.
Yeah, I think it's important that like with exercise and nutrition and these different hacks, routines, and then I've always been a big fan of cacao at the end of the night and making like your own hot chocolate and adaptogens. Yes, I just started working with that for sleep as well. So I think that was an excellent suggestion, that we have all these things in our toolbox to help us get through this stage. But all the things that you've suggested today have been amazing. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but we're just trying to give it like the best course of action, the best, simplify it and give it out in the best way known possible. And I do think that's why doing things like your retreats, which I'm going to ask you about as we roll this down, retreats and working with a coach is so important when you're trying to just get through this minefield that is the internet and what is right and what is wrong. But I want to thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to give us this information today, and we're just scratching the surface. So if you could just tell us a little bit about where everyone can find you, reach out to you, and your retreats and what you have going on, so they can take advantage of your knowledge.
So we have open coaching spots with thehouseofrose.com. Coach and nurse Kelly and I are taking on clients who are in midlife and looking to navigate, like you said, that minefield, which it most absolutely is. So much going on out there. So we are taking on one-on-one clients and group coaching clients. So if you're interested, you could go to the house, so THE, thehouseofrose.com. And then the other place you can find me is also on the website for retreats. We're actually completely sold out for 2025. We're about to release the 2026 schedule, and it's going to include south of France and Sedona on top of our main location, our headquarters in Tennessee. And yeah, so it's 5-day retreats. There's some still available. I think there's 2 dates still open, but they're all complete. They've been sold out for 3 months now. So there's the two things we offer: coaching and retreats. And then you can find me on Instagram. How good can it get? Because it can get good.
You had me at South of France. I'm currently trying to sign up right now for the South of France retreat. But yes, I think exactly, how good can it get? We undersell ourselves as women. We don't look at the potential if we just take the time to take care of ourselves versus everyone else. And again, reach out to Terry, and we will put all your info in the show notes. So don't worry if you missed it. And I always ask guests this one question, and if you can't think of it, it's understandable, because when I first asked it when I first said, okay, what would I pick, it took me forever to come up with it. If you had a song that sort of was your theme song for your journey, or where you're at right now with either just your life or with the work that you're doing, what would it be?
My theme song my whole life has been by Foreigner. I want to know what love is. And it's not that I'm asking the question. It's that I am giving it out. So everything I do is about, it's coming from a place of love. Even the conversations that sound a little like, she's preaching again. It's all coming from love because I've been there and I know how crappy it feels to be lost and to feel shamed and to not be able to look in the mirror and to hate yourself, right? I know what that feels like. And instead, I want to know what it feels like to love myself.
That's the most the most different of the choices. Usually we get like, Celine Dion or these very empowering mantra songs, and I love this song. I love this choice and the meaning that you gave it. So it's gonna go, we do a Spotify playlist for the podcast, the Hellfire Show podcast playlist. Wow, I just repeated myself. That's menopause right there. See that brain fog for that split second, but that'll be on there. So I'm excited to put that one on. And Terry, again, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know your schedule's crazy, for giving us again, just scratching the surface. Everybody go reach out to Terry, and you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, all the things. And thank you guys for tuning in. And Terry, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love being here.